Start recording. All right. And we'd like to welcome everybody to the Writers Cooperative. I see a couple new people, so thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be spending some time with Chloe Holiday, aka Diana, who has been writing in the, what would you call it, thriller, suspense, romance
I'd
genre?
call it romantic suspense.
Okay, adventure romance.
Yeah, yeah.
You've been doing it for 2 years now, and you're going to walk us through a lot of the problems, a lot of the issues, a lot of the fun things that you've been able to accomplish. And so we're recording this. If anyone has any comments, go ahead and toss that into the chat, and I will go ahead and ask Diana as she's going, and then maybe at the end we'll do a little bit of Q&A, and we'll stop you along the way if there's any questions. So have at it, Diana.
That sounds great.
Thanks.
My hope here is to kind of showcase what I found to be the challenges and the joys in my journey so far. And I'm new at it still, but I think that first couple years is the hardest. And so I'm just hoping that some of this will be useful to new people still kind of on the sidelines, not sure if it's for them, and that maybe there'll be something that even veterans can learn from. So an aviation term, and right now I'm doing graphics for my new crop duster story. And so an aviation term is flying by the seat of your pants. And that means that if you don't have instruments, or back in the day, you would know if you were ascending or descending basically by whether you felt like you were getting heavier on your butt or whether you were lightening up. And I think this is one of the things that I did going along, is to just kind of make it up as I went along. And I think that might have hurt me some. And so we'll talk about that. And then the other reason I chose this graphic is that it maybe will help some of the people who kind of want to get going but don't know where to start. And it seems so daunting and scary that maybe it will help them get up off the seat of their pants and make some inroads.
You got a little bit of a box on the middle of your screen. Is that little leftover Skype window? You can just close it if you want.
Is it gone?
Perfect. It's gone. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So 3 years ago, I had newly retired and had a situation where half of my family was in Illinois trying to sell a house there, and I was here trying to rehab a cabin by the river with the other half of my family. And for various other reasons, I had a lot of trouble sleeping. And so I started to write with some of those sleepless hours, and maybe as a way to kind of get my mind off things. Oh, now my thing won't advance. Rats. There we go. Well, maybe not. There we go. So in that time, I also did a lot of reading. And I've always loved to read, but my job kept me from doing it consistently for many years. And this is really good for a new author or a wannabe author on several fronts. And one of them is there's really helpful short and long term to see how very many traditionally published and indie stories both have some pretty significant weaknesses. And I thought, well, gee, I can do this well, surely. I also noticed that there were not very many STEM heroines, not very many engineers, not very many mathematicians. And somewhere in there, I also got a misdelivered postcard for a hemodynamics conference in Boston. And so with that as the basis of it, I wrote a thriller. And it was wonderful. It was fun. It kept me going. It gave me some things to think about. And it was just really a fascinating process. But it turned out I wasn't writing a thriller. I actually wrote two thrillers kind of shoved together. And it just wasn't really coming together the way that I had hoped. But it really had been a blast to do it. And I thought, I'm retired now. I can do this. So now it's time to get my act together. And so I joined some writers groups and I started to go to some talks. And one of them was Matt's talk in the Sultan Library. And that was very helpful. And one of the big milestones that kind of helped alter my destiny to actually doing something and becoming a published writer. I joined my favorite online writing group, Scribophile, and I was like a sponge also soaking up all kinds of crafts books and seminars, that kind of thing. And then I started to write a lot. I wrote a new novel or two, but I also wrote a lot of flash and short stories and found that was very helpful to hone my voice and work on brevity and punchiness, etc. And it's interesting that some of those short stories in flash went on to new lives. In fact, I think in the Writers Co-op horror anthologies, I have my Alzheimer's story in there, and I don't think the Bog Mummy is in there, but the axe guy on the side of the road stories in there. So flash and short stories are really good for an aspiring novelist too, for practice. And so then once again I was on my way. It was very fun, and it couldn't be that hard. Other people were getting published, why not me? And so I did some queries, and I thought, well, I'll just query because I'm good enough for this, and I'll write some more novels, and if the queries go nowhere, then I'll self-publish. And I had been reading things about rapid release, and it made perfect sense. Launch one, then launch another in short succession, taking advantage of the hype of the first one, and just lob them out there in short sequence and demonstrate that you're someone who's there to stay and capitalize on the momentum. So that's what I did. I formed a publishing company, Acme Words and Punctuation, and I wrote a short novella, which is my lead magnet, Finders Keepers. I joined Scribophile, which is a big thing in my journey, and wrote a couple other novels, all in the same series or universe. And so then I lobbed those out in rapid release into the giant sea of Amazon. And I was pleased to get really good reviews. And then they just kind of sank. And I don't really know what the bottom is of Amazon, but I spent a fair amount of time with some of them ranked lower than 1 million. And so that was very discouraging to see that. Part of it was that I had very naive ideas going in. I kind of thought that if you did a really good story, that was gonna be enough, that people would be able to see with all the crummy books out there some quality, and that word of mouth would be enough to get a person where they wanted to be. And maybe that would be true if you had 25 years for it to kick in, but I don't. And it was just a foolish beginner mistake that I had, the idea that it would just sort of happen. I also had no real infrastructure for getting the word out. Didn't do any ads, didn't have a website to speak of. I was just starting to do that. Didn't have anybody on the newsletter except me and a few family members. And I was also very worried about money. You know, I had had a house to fix. I had one that hadn't sold, maintaining 2 households, and it just seemed crazy to spend money on what might be a losing proposition. So I think that hamstrung me a little bit too, because I was kind of cheap in some aspects. Anyway, it was kind of discouraging because here I was, a little fish. There are a whole lot of people on Amazon, big fish, 6-figure authors, people who were successful. And it really seemed very daunting, possibly impossible, to get from where I was to where I wanted to be. And I think that's really common probably for someone new, unless they're that unicorn who just happens to catch fire from their very first debut. But that's kind of the second danger point, I think, of a new writer. The first is never getting out there because you're scared or you don't think it's enough. But the second one is this one, which is crap, I did all this work and look, I got nothing. And it's dangerous because then the thoughts that come naturally are, well, maybe this is a waste of time. Maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I just don't have it and I'm not as good as I think I am and everyone's too polite to tell me. Or that there's some secret code, some handshake that I don't know and never will know. Or I don't write in the right genre, what have you. And then one path that's easy to take is to say, well, I know all these other courses and websites and authors, they are all selling the secret handshake, the way to do it. And if you're not careful, you can spend a whole lot of time chasing and chasing and chasing these sorts of how-to kinds of uh, 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 paths. And that can get expensive in terms of money and time both. And the thing that I found useful here in this situation is to try to come up with a concrete plan for how to get where I was going and to separate the emotion from that plan, because it's very easy for a person to feel like nobody loves them, maybe to get their teeth kicked by a bad review, maybe to kind of fall victim to kind of a whiny spiral of nobody loves me, this is not fair. And so that's a really important thing, I think, to help a person buck up and get on with the next part of things. So I decided it was time to get serious. And part of that was to figure out really, what did I want? What was my plan and why was I doing it? And I kind of knew this seems stupid, but it was very, very helpful, critical, in fact, for me to try to articulate that and nail it down. And we'll talk a little more about that. Matt had talked about infrastructure. It made sense when he said it, but I had kind of done that by the seat of my pants for sure. And I decided that this was stupid and I needed to actually make it happen. And I needed to be smarter about what I spent my money on and my time, that I needed to do some networking and think hard about my brand. And that while I wanted to believe that if I was so great, I wouldn't have to advertise, I realized that that was stupid, and that if no one knows about you, no one can buy your stuff. So the biggest thing, I think, for someone at that stage of their career is to think hard and very honestly about really what the point of it is for them. And this is very unique to the individual, and there's no right answer here. But the reason that it's important to articulate what success is to a writer is that this becomes kind of the touchstone and the guiding principle for going forward. If you want to be a New York Times bestselling author, if you want to be a six-figure author, you're going to have to do different things than if your goal is simply to publish your memoirs so that your immediate family can read those. And what your goals are will then basically dictate, together with what you're willing to do to get there, it'll dictate your path, and it'll also serve as a touchstone for keeping you honest and helping motivate you as you go along the rest of the journey. So thinking about this, I realized that my goal was to have not bestseller status, although I wouldn't mind that, but my goal was to have at least some hardcore fans who really love my stuff enough that they would be super fans and that they would always want it. I was vain enough that I wanted good reviews. I did not want to be somebody who had crappy reviews. I'm afraid when I shop Amazon, I don't even look at anything that's not 4 stars. I just don't, whether that's products or books. So I wanted that. And I don't dream of a movie deal or six-figure income, but I did want enough money to offset my family's insurance costs. And then I also wanted a pace that I could do long-term without getting burnt out or feeling frantic. And that's really important to me. I know there are some folks who can push out a book every month, and good for them. I think that's very impressive, but it's just not a pace for me. And that's okay. I think that's the whole point of this exercise, is finding out what works for you, what you're willing to do, and to make a plan that is sustainable long term. So then the next step is to map out, where you want to be. What is it going to take to get you there? So this is my aviation theme this month. This is a little bit of a chart actually in the background, fuzzy, but I thought that was fun. So you want to spend some time thinking about your brand. When someone knows your author's name, what do they think about? For Tony, it's going to be mature mystery. For Matt, it's going to be horror. For me, my brand is romance with a little bit of a kick, that's not vapid, not mega smutty, and a romance where people learn new things, and something that's not always the same, has a fair amount of humor and often some suspense. So that's my brand. It's worth thinking about your own personal strengths and weaknesses here, so that you can either address the weaknesses, do something about them, or just own them and accept them. That's valid too. And then lean into your strengths. And so you want to think about this in terms of writing, but also your mental and emotional landscape. What drives you, what hinders you. So for me, a strength I have is I'm a fast writer. I have pretty decent mechanics already, and I have a fantastic critique network that if I post a whole novel, I will have 12 people have gone through it within a couple weeks. And so that's fantastic. My weakness, though, was my covers. I didn't have very good infrastructure yet. I was Amazon only, and I didn't have any audiobooks or any extras that were going to work to pull people in. And so this is the second danger point, where you're barraged by all this other stuff, and fear of missing out can become very, very strong. You should be on Twitter. You've got to tweet this. Well, you're not on TikTok. Of course you haven't been successful. You've got to take more how-to courses and learn the secret handshake. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. Pay somebody, anybody, try again. And sometimes even all to the point of, crap, I just better query because I can't do this. The reality is that there is only so much pie, and that's true gastronomically, but this is a metaphor for time and money, and particularly time. And so we all have to think long and hard about really what's important to us, and not try to shave our pie into such thin little slivers that none of it will work. So I decided that my goals were to keep writing in a series, that I needed to fix the cover, I needed to work on my infrastructure, and that meant amping up my newsletter, trying to get some new readers with lead magnets, and venture into Facebook. I had never been on Facebook ever in my entire life until then. I didn't like it. I didn't like that kind of stuff. I was very private. But, sometimes you have to do things you don't particularly enjoy. I decided that audio was maybe a thing I could do. It had a lower bar if you were willing to do some DIY stuff. I decided to look for some collaborations as a way to network and leverage, plan out a new series, try to streamline my time with some better formatting. So I got Vellum, and then I had to change my mindset about ads. The truth is, it would be stupid for a coffee shop to open up and figure that people would somehow know they existed. And really, writing is a commodity, and it's not any different. So this was my new path. Got my newsletter, started a blog, went on social media, et cetera, and we'll talk a little bit about each of those. So here are my first covers. I thought this might be useful for you guys to see, and you'll probably laugh at what I was thinking, but here we go. So The lead magnet is called Finders Keepers, and it's a holiday romance. And I loved this first cover. I thought it was great because it's snow, it's two little hearts, it's vivid, it's bright, it's a fun. And the problem is it doesn't signal steamy romance. And so there were a few reviews that said, I love the story, but oh my goodness, I did not know. So that had to change. So then my next cover was this guy. And this certainly is a steamier sort of look with a hunky, broody man. That's classic if you don't want to go straight for the abs. Um, the problem with this is it kind of looked like futuristic cyborg paranormal romance, or maybe even dark romance with, you know, a nutcase mafia kidnapper guy. Um, and so then I went with this person with snow in their hair and a scarf, but you can't see it. And I thought, you know, fine. At a certain point, I kind of wore out and said, you know, good enough. I'm tired of dinking with this. So then the next novel is set in Greece, but this one disappeared on the thumbnails. This one actually fits the story very well, but people couldn't tell what it was. And so then I went with broody male gaze. New Heights started as this one because it features rock climbing, and then I went to this one, um, and so there was some evolution, and I was hoping that a similar font was enough to brand them, but that wasn't very smart, and I think my covers have held me back significantly. So take two. So now I have a logo for the series, and now some branded covers that I think fit together much, much better with the black and white and this sort of font. This one, I'm waiting for the designer to, these the designer did for me. This one I did because she's not done this one yet, but this sort of font will go over there at some point. And then I did keep the brighter ones for the audiobooks actually. But I've noticed both in terms of when I do promos now and just buys, I'm getting more because I think people can obviously know that they're romance. I kind of hated to do it in a way because I think mine are more than just love stories, and I did not want to scare away the women's fiction readers or my Chloe bros, those men I have who like my stories, but it was the right thing to do. This is another good example of series branding. This is Sierra's All-American Boys series. This is the last go-round. I think there have been 4 of them. But you can see that they are all identical, or at least cohesive in looks. And so I was lucky enough to have one in last fall's and then one here coming up in May. And this will lead us into group promos. So when I did this Boy and His Dog story, it was a #1 new release for Amazon and a #1 Amazon bestseller. And I was blown away by that. It was wonderful. I had to take some screenshots. I missed the one that said #1, but you know, this right here, that's right up with Dean Koontz and the Watchers. So this was astonishing and a lot of fun and made me think, you know, I can do this. So collaborations are a great way to kind of leverage and level up one story. There are some things to think about, though. A collaboration is a lot of work, especially for the organizer. And so they're not going to take just anybody. And that might be an issue if you have very few books out or you have poor ratings on the books that you have. And the first collaboration I applied for, I was actually turned down. So you can't pout and stomp away with that. You just have to understand that it's a business, not a charity. If you do a collaboration, you want to bring value and not be trouble, basically, because that organizer is going to be herding cats with a bunch of temperamental authors, I think, sometimes. So ask questions so you don't botch something, and do your own homework and do what you can. Don't expect someone to coddle you. Don't whine when it doesn't work out. There are bound to be things that go wrong. Your book isn't put in the series by Amazon. They're slow about it. Some of the other authors may not share when they should, or the release dates change. Things happen. You should be happy to be in the show and not be that downer who brings down the whole group. Do your share, maybe even go above. I tried to be the most gung-ho person in the group, even if it didn't always get reciprocated by some of them. That happens, and you don't know what has happened in those other people's lives. So do your share and try to enjoy the ride. It's a risky thing to think that the collaboration will do all the heavy lifting for you. I think it's tremendous because you are able to harness some of the readership for everybody, but it's worth doing some promos on your own. It is possible to do your own collaboration if you can't find anyone who will let you join also. And I was thinking that I might do that at some point. In fact, I think Sierra said once that this is why she did her first one, and so it's possible to do that too. So here are some of the things that I did for A Boy and His Dog to try to help with promo and branding. So some of these are Instagram sized. Most of them are branded, so you can see the All American Boy brand in the ones where it fits. They show that it is a military story. If you look, it's clearly a doggy story also. If you look, and it also showcases that these are available in audio. That was important to me to try to do that. So I just played around and got a bunch of promos. It's a medical romance as well, so I had some that had that. And then this is something I did to try to drive pre-orders and readership. The dog in the story is called Mojo, and I said in some of my promos, if you get the story in the first month, I'll give you a link to Mojo's story. And so I uploaded to Story Origin this little, couple page story about the dog. It was from his POV, and it had the same kind of formatting as the novels, or the novel, to kind of tie that in and make it belong. And I think that helped. I think that was interesting and fun for people. So I did stacked advertising. I ended up paying $700 something, which was horrifying to me. But about half of that was a BookBub new release. But I made all that back in the first month. And so that was eye-opening to me. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, and it has gone on to get a huge number of reviews. I think it hit November 4th, I believe, and it has 119 reviews now, which for me is great. I think it helped to have it in both paperback and audio as well. One thing that's important is to remember to thank your organizer in this, because it is a lot of work, I think, for them. One of the things that all of us will have to decide on this journey is what is worth doing yourself versus what is worth paying for. And if you had lots of money, it wouldn't matter. You could just farm everything out. And I think the big people do that. But it really can start to add up. And so this is part of why you analyze your own strengths. For me, editing is easy, between my critique partners and my own, the way I'm wired. Editing and formatting, is not too hard for me. Audio, I have this nice booth set up that's worth doing my own self. But to me, doing the promos and doing the covers, that's definitely worth throwing some money at. So at this stage of my career, the things that I really, really love and need are Story Origin, which is my favorite place for dispersing ARCs and reader magnets. BookFunnel is second best. I'm going to keep BookFunnel because one of my plans is to be able to disperse audiobooks there with direct sales. I've not put that in place yet, but that's why BookFunnel is still on my list there. I like BookBrush and Crello for doing graphics and formatting. Story Origin, I guess I have there twice. I sprung for Vellum for formatting, and I won't go back. I think it is so much faster and better, and it makes it so that you can do the fun chapter headings that you can kind of customize to your book, which I think gives a little more pizzazz, like that thing on Mojo's story that I showed you, with the mountains that tied into the story and the bone. Um, right now I'm in KU only. I think that's important for me. I'm starting to inch out into wide, but we'll have to see what happens with that. A website is a really important part of branding, and especially if you are of the mindset where you do blogs and things like that, that can be another way, not only for your readers to get to know you, but also for you to kind of concentrate the people who like your kind of thing. It's branding. It's showcasing who you are and what they can expect when they read your stories. So I think that's really, really important. I like book sirens for ARCs for beyond my current group. It's a way to pull in some other people that you can vet, and the price is reasonable. For audio mastering, I really like RX8, and for Elements RX8, and that's something that one can get on sale twice a year, I think, especially around Thanksgiving. That saved me a lot of time with those cursed clicks. And then the Writers Co-op is actually on my go-to list, because if one of us hasn't, if I haven't done it, probably one of the others have. And it's a really, really good bunch, also very collegial and giving, rather than kind of cutthroat, get away from me, I'm not going to share my secrets with you. And I think really I do owe where I am today to the co-op, frankly. So where am I now? My new story, Flyboy, comes out on the 5th of May, and I just uploaded the final thing today. Actually, I have 3 formats in it, and so the audiobook, I've already sold a couple of those, and I've already sold 1 paperback. I do the paperbacks. I don't have very many paperback sales, but I have them partly because if you have the paperback go live a week ahead of time, you can make it so that the reviews can populate to that, and then they'll flow over and be live the second your ebook hits. And I think that helps. So I like to do it that way. I have just gone wide with Finders Keepers in ebook, and so we'll see what happens with that. I have to finish recovering the entire series. I have 1 more book to write in it, and then I need to have the artist put the gold font into Finders Keepers. I have a new series I'm working on now, and my plan is to do the audiobooks for all of them. I think it's a way to help me stand out. I think it's another readership, perhaps. I already have the infrastructure in place now with this nice booth, etc. And I'm finding that it helps me actually with my editing, because there's nothing like saying something aloud to me, to be able to say, that sounds stupid, or gosh, I didn't realize I said that word twice or 3 times. And so I'm finding it really great to write, revise, think I have the final, narrate the audiobook, and then as I do that, correct a few words here and there in the paperback and the ebook. I think it's a faster way of doing things. So here we go with some of what I've got for Flyboy. So it's a steamy romance that has branded things for the series. I have things that signal that it's down home Southern, and with both speech and things like the boots. I have signaled that it's available in audio, whether that's headphone thingies or just the little sign. I have some graphics that I hope will be eye-catching and maybe a little intriguing. What is $100 hamburger? So we'll see, how those go. So where I am now is getting the new release done, finishing up this series and launching the next one. I need to do all of Helios in audiobook, and that is taking a little while because I foolishly have them set in Greece, and that means some Greek accents. And I can actually do a decent Greek accent now because I have watched a lot of Chef Aki. And now I can also cook Greek too. So this is great. But that rolled R can certainly be a problem for me some. And so that's a little bit slow. I need to see what going wide is doing for me and make a decision about whether to pull it back into KU or to keep everything in KU versus to start maybe sprinkling money for ads for wide. I need to work on doing better with Amazon ads as well. My ads are basically like throwing money into a ditch right now. And I'm sure I can do better, but I just, didn't have enough pie in terms of time and money to spend much on that. But maybe now I'll be able to do that. I'm starting to try to look for podcasts to be on that might get me some exposure to my target audiences. I think I'm always going to be an indie at heart because I love the control. But I would not mind a hand and I would not mind another broader audience. And so to that end, I have now a manuscript in discussion with the Wild Rose Press, which is a smallish romance press. So we'll see what happens with that. We're in the talking stage, but ideally it'll be a way maybe for me to reach more readers, and then I can pick and choose what goes to Wild Rose versus what I continue to do on my own. And then I'm kind of interested in doing box sets. I kind of think that might be worth time to explore the best way to make that work. My intermediate goal then is to look a little more about the wide release. I'm thinking about maybe setting up a Facebook reader group. And this is funny, isn't it? As someone who just hated the idea of Facebook at all, now I'm maybe going to do a readers group. But I think it might be a fun way to at least make sure that if I ever did get a super fan, that they have some place to go. I'm thinking about direct sales. And maybe making a YouTube channel and perhaps even looking at some book talk things. So we'll see what happens with that. In the distant future, I have entertained the thought of maybe doing some audio for folks as a side hustle. Certainly there's some money in that, and I think there's a fair amount of people who can't do audio because they're self-conscious about their voice, or they just don't have a husband who will make them an audio closet like this. I don't know if I'll do that or not, but it's a maybe. And then I still have my original thriller, which is now actually a trilogy, not one thriller like I thought, but it is a good story. And a lot of anyone who reads my stuff knows that I'm kind of a thriller writer at heart because I have all kinds of bad things happen in my stories. So I have to make a decision about whether or not I get a new pen name for the thrillers because they don't fit in the Chloe Holiday brand. So I might have to think about that a little bit. But I do need to find a way to get those out there. And then maybe at some point I'll be thinking about translations, in the foreign countries. Right now I do have some sales in Europe and other places. But that's a thing for the future. So bottom line, to get from that mini fish stage to getting liftoff, the important things that helped me was to do an honest assessment of really what I wanted and then make a choice about what I was willing to do, understanding that you can't do everything. To identify strengths and weaknesses, we all have them and they're all different. And then own them. And what I mean by that is either fix them if it's a problem or make a deliberate decision that you don't care. And you'll work with what you have and concentrate on your strengths. Map it out. Where are you now? where you want to be and what are come up with a path for where to get, how to get there. Boy, I can't talk. This one is very important too. And this is why I found that what was important to me goal-wise and what I was willing to do were the two guiding principles to keep me sane in this journey. And I think, and they will be from here on. It is so easy for a person to look at what everyone else is doing. Well, Matt hit the #1 bestsellers list, with his story. Well, gosh, this person is on Oprah. Well, gosh, that person has a movie deal with Angelina Jolie. It's really, really easy to get discouraged on what seems to be instant success by others, and you can make yourself nuts with that. So it's really good long haul wise, if you can kind of train yourself to keep your eyes on your own paper. And the way to do that, for me at least, was what's important to me. That core group of fans, good reviews, and eventually a little bit of money. And that will help keep a person from chasing that unicorn or burning themselves out trying to do too many things all at once. It's important to keep maintaining, and that's writing chops and challenges and the next book, and also the maintenance stuff, whether that's keeping your back matter up to date, tweaking your website a little bit, doing some newsletters, and that's also giving back. All of us had to start knowing nothing and scared. And so if we can give back, whether that's in collaboration or swaps or doing talks like this, that's important too, I believe. It's important to remember that you only have so much pie and life is to live. And so if you keep an eye on what's important to you and what you're willing to do, it will help insulate you, inoculate you from chasing down the next big thing. And then the last thing is everybody is going to screw up, or most will anyway. Failure is going to happen. You're going to have a disappointing launch. Someone is going to two-star you. These things are going to happen. You're going to upload something with some typos. Things happen, but you can always do it again. There's always a do-over as long as you're alive. And in fact, as an indie author, it's a lot easier to do an uploader than to do a re-upload or a do-over than if you're having to go through some big publishing house to do things. You can be a lot more nimble in terms of fixing and correcting mistakes that you make. So that's what has been helpful for me, and some mistakes that I hope maybe you won't make the way I did. So go make your own splash.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your help on this. This has been really good, really enlightening. And the funny thing is, I think I'm falling into your camp as well. Stop worrying about chasing everybody and build a good base and grow from there. I think that's the right way to go. You had a big list of things that you were working towards.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see something out of that list that is the most important thing for you to work on over the next 6, 7, 8 months?
This one?
Yeah.
Well, the new release, it's done, except for sharing everyone else's release. I just uploaded the final thingy, and the ebook's out, and all that's done. Yippee! Yep. Haven't written the last Helios novel, but I've thought about it, and that sounds stupid, but the truth is, the brain is a scary and powerful thing because it's stuffed full of the self-conscious. And so when you're pulling weeds or walking dogs or not thinking about your novel, you really are thinking about it. And so it's been brewing, and I think I've worked through kind of the thing that made me unenthused about that plot. It's actually your wife's fault, okay? Yep. But because she was the one who said, this person really needs their own story. And I thought, she's right. But I didn't like certain things about the plot I had come up with. And I think I've found a way around that. So I want to get that done. I'm only 5 chapters short of the Helios audio, but then I have a bunch of other ones. So, and the query's ongoing. So I guess right now priorities are the next Alpha Med novel. I have it written and I need to revise it. That's what I'm excited about. I guess one of my problems is I have too many things I want to do, and it makes it hard. But that's the thing that fires me up most, because I'm a masochist, and so all my novels have been kind of, let me see if I can pull this off. That sounds so stupid, but it's true. Can
Yeah.
I pull off a deaf heroine? Can I make readers root for a heroine who's in fact an alcoholic or mentally ill or whatever? Um, and so this one is to take a very, very ancient, tired trope and see if I can dress it up and make it fresh. Um, and so that's been a lot of fun. So I want to finish that as my next thing. And infrastructure wise, I think I want to look at direct sales. I think, I'm honest enough to say that part of this is money. It's not the entire thing, but some money. Um, and so I think I'm going to look at that and maybe get the courage up to go to one of these events and see how that goes live, with people at the tables. Um, but probably mainly through the website. So that'll be one thing that I'm looking at. And after that, then it'll be YouTube and TikTok maybe. I guess you asked for one thing and I've just talked and talked. AlphaMed.
Well, we would love to get you out to one of the selling events. I think that would be, a great experience. I know it's always fun for people to get out and talk to people. It's a little scary.
Well, I imagine I can do it, but yeah, I don't know. I think I don't like salesmen. I don't. I hate it. And so I don't want to be one of them. And so that's a mindset thing that I still struggle with, which is I'm not trying to push my crappy books on people. I'm trying to say this book will bring you joy, I think.
Yeah.
Diana,
this is a
let
good
me
thing.
interrupt.
Go ahead.
This is Tony.
Yes.
I was at the Mother Lovin' event yesterday. I have never had a better time. We laughed. We don't push our books.
No.
We ask if they want questions. And if you want to do an event, I would gladly do the first one with you. I made more money yesterday than I have at any other event.
Congratulations. That is awesome. And I appreciate that offer too, because I think, having a veteran who knows what they're doing would be helpful for that. And I don't know, it just squicks me out a little bit. So
we put up a handmade sign that said all strollers must stop here. And then that way we got to
you at least got to see some
everybody's
babies. That's a wonderful idea. Yeah, no, that's a wonderful idea. It'd be worth it just for that. I mean, my baby just turned 27 yesterday. So I'm glad you said that. I'll go maybe just to see a baby.
They were coming in. They loved to show them as much as we liked,
Sure.
No, I think that's great. Yeah, we got to get you out to one of the events. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely worth the experience. Anybody else have any questions? Tony, John, Jennifer, do you guys have anything you wanted to talk about? Jennifer, did you want to talk a little bit about maybe if you had any questions or if where you are in your writing? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Hi.
Hey.
I really enjoyed this. This was great. Thank you, Diane, so much for going through all this with us. I have a hard time with the selling part, and that was spot on. Doing any kind of marketing on Facebook or any of that, it's just awkward.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna try to learn more. Be more brave.
Well, it helps to have people you can ask, like the co-op. I mean, I don't think, had I not blundered into Matt's talk that day, I don't think I'd be here now. And And after 2 years of kind of making progress but not fast progress, I feel like it's like things are starting to take off, that things are going to really come together now. So yeah, I think I think any of us are willing to help if people have questions, and I think it's great to have people who can rah too.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Well, Diana, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.